Good day and welcome to the Sanien Speaks Volumes. I'm your host, Fazil Jacobs. Today we find ourselves in Somerset West, visiting with Sanien, who is a phytotherapist. Welcome to the show, Sanien.
Thank you, Fazil.
Phytotherapist. What is a phytotherapist?
Phyto is the Greek word for plant. So phytotherapist is a practitioner who uses plants in a medicinal way.
Okay, so it's very much like a herbalist.
It would be called medical herbalism in the Northern Hemisphere.
Okay.
But for the purposes of South Africa, it's called phytotherapy.
Okay. So let's jump right into it. It's a lot of questions are floating around on social media, a lot of articles, and personally on the show it's came up a few times, and that's the use of this little plant here, cannabis, and the role cannabis plays in, be it curing cancer or the treatment of cancer. Would you mind sharing your views on that?
Wow, that's quite a short question with a very long answer. The fact that cannabis is being legalized not only in South Africa or all over the world, people are re-looking at this plant, is actually making us intrigued, because cannabis has been used in herbal medicine for centuries and centuries. It's one of the oldest medicinal plants, but because it got criminalized at some stage, I think a lot of the value has been distorted. When we look at the cannabis plant, it's for me one of the most beautiful plants there is, and it's actually a treasure trove of active ingredients. In these little leaves and trichomes, there's up to 400 different active ingredients.
What?
Yeah. So often I compare the cannabis plant to a fruitcake.
Okay.
Just saying you're not baking a fruitcake, but you're not only putting dates and raisins in, there's a whole host of ingredients that go in. So exactly the same with cannabis. And if we just isolate one of the ingredients, we lose the potential of all the active ingredients that is in the plant that work synergistically together to give us the outcome that it gives.
I see you mentioned there's the THCs and
So the THCs and the CBDs is the buzzword nowadays, and people use different types of CBD oil or THC oil, and there's this concept of one drop of oil the size of a rice grain is doing A, B, C, D, E, and F. And we're saying, but are you sure? How can you be sure? And the fact that the cannabis industry is only now being controlled and in the process of being regulated will hopefully help us to standardize cannabis treatments in the long run.
Because I've seen, and as a cancer patient, cancer survivor, I got offered the oils when I was going through my treatment. And looking at the pricing, I mean, you get them from 300 Rand to 1,300 Rand. And something there doesn't add up.
You're very right. And for me, it's not about using it or not using it. It is, if you decide to use it, it is to be used in conjunction with your medical treatment. I don't see it as an alternative. I see it as a complementary form of treatment, with the blessing and with the full disclosure to your medical team as well.
Okay.
We do find that it's a big challenge, and I really get heartache if I see patients coming to the practice and they've really invested a lot of money in these little brown bottles with promises inside of them, and you're not sure. And when you start asking them, but where did you get it from? What species have been used? When has the plant been harvested? How has the oil been processed? What is your concentration of active ingredients in your oil? How do you know how much to take? All these questions remain unanswered. And because of that, you often don't know what you're doing. I've seen different types of products on my desk that looks from olive oil to tar.
Yeah.
And
tar.
and then how can you make a judgment on something that you don't know what it contains? And for me, that's the big challenge of working with cannabis.
So for somebody who is looking at using cannabis oil as part of the treatment. And I'm looking at your dispensary here. There's more than just cannabis oil, and I'd like to chat about that a little later. But for cannabis oil itself, what should I be looking for if, okay, I'm going to use this as part and, as you say, complementing my treatment? What do I need to look out for?
The main thing for me, before I answer that question, would be for you to understand what is cannabis actually doing. And to understand that in your body, you've got an endocannabinoid system. And we've been fearfully and wonderfully made and designed with a system in our body that can help us adapt to the environment and repair what goes wrong. And that is an endocannabinoid system. The endocannabinoid system has got cannabinoid receptors.
Okay.
Endocannabinoid means the body makes cannabinoids. So if your body makes sufficient cannabinoids due to the food that you eat, due to the things that you do, due to your lifestyle, that protective system will be in place. If not,
so it's there naturally.
It's there naturally. If not, we need to look to plant cannabinoids or then synthetic cannabinoids.
Okay.
Cannabis is not the only plant that contains cannabinoids or ingredients that act as receptors for cannabinoids. Plants like rosemary has it, echinacea, black pepper, marjoram, nutmeg. There's a whole host of other medicinal plants who also have got active ingredients that acts on the body's own endocannabinoid system.
Okay, so in other words, there's a lot more.
There's a lot more than just needing to rely solely on this beautiful leaf or trichome to make it the be all and end all of what is available. Okay,
so then just looking, and again, I'm sort of wanting to look at the 300 Rand cannabis oil versus the 1,300 Rand. Why the huge discrepancy in price? Is it the way that the oil is made or the tar is made?
Processing is very, very complicated. For plant material to be converted to medicine does not happen in a kitchen.
Okay.
I think that's really something important. Also, what is important to say is at this stage in South Africa in 2019, whether you buy 300 Rands worth of cannabis oil or 1,500 Rands worth of cannabis oil, it's still illegal. We cannot legally prescribe and legally dispense it. The quantities of CBD oil that's legal is at this stage not at a therapeutic level.
Okay.
So get back to your question, if the people want to buy this, they need to be very sure of their source. And they are entitled to ask questions. Hopefully in a year or 2 or 3 from now, we will have standardized, quantified products that's much safer to use. But very important, make sure that you know where your oil is coming from. Ask questions about how it is being processed. Ask questions about the spectrum of active ingredients. Are there a plant spectrum or spectroscopy done on the oil to show what is in there in which concentrations, because your concentrations will determine your dosage. If someone weighs 50 kilograms versus someone weighing 90 kilograms, they will not use the same dosage.
So it's pretty much the same as your medication?
It is. And often people use it with wonderful effects. Other time people use it with no effects.
Okay.
So what one also needs to remember is the harvesting of the plant is crucial. You need to harvest the plant when the active constituents is at its highest levels. So if you harvest the plant too soon or too late, your concentration of active ingredients are not optimal. So at the end, your end product will not have optimal dosages.
Okay. So there's a lot of questions coming up for me now, but I think basically we really got to question the source, where it's coming from. Did this person making the oil have a look at a couple of YouTube videos and is now manufacturing this in their kitchen?
That's what we so often see.
And how they're creating this oil in terms of what they're putting in to that pot, so to speak, to make an oil could also, I suppose at the end of the day, could have a negative effect on you.
Well, specifically for someone who is a cancer warrior, it's really important that you honor your body.
Sure.
And that you put in your body what is pure and for the best possible outcome. So that's why you need to make sure that what you put into your body is going to be for the benefit. And for it to be for the benefit, you need to know what is in there.
What is in there.
And cannabis is not the be-all and end-all. If we look at the plant spectrum, there's a host of other plants that can also have beneficial medicinal properties. And for us, it's about how can we activate your body's endocannabinoid system.
Okay, so taking this into in consideration, chemotherapy and then cannabis oil.
Yes.
Do you do it together? Do you tell your doctor about it? What's the best practice, so to speak?
For me, best practice is always honesty. So the disclosure for me is essential, because there's drug-herb interactions that both your doctor and your therapist needs to be aware of. I often see chemotherapy literally as a battle. It's a battle between the chemotherapy drugs and the cancer cells in your body. And you want that battle to be as efficient and as effective as possible. You don't want any interference or distractions in that battle. Once that battle is finished, we need to clear up the battleground, so to speak. So that is where complementary medicine can play a vital role in helping to clear up the battleground before the next round of chemo or before the next battle, so to speak, is taking place.
So that's the Red Cross coming in, doing repairs, basically.
Prepares for the next battle. Yeah. And that is why I see the use of plant medicine as complementary to allopathic medicine and not as alternative.
Thank you. This is opening up so many questions for me. But right now we have some bills to pay. We'll be back with you shortly. Please check in and we'll be discussing some of the rest of the wonderful plants that we have here. Stay tuned. We'll be with you shortly. Welcome back to The Silence Speaks Volumes. We find ourselves out in Somerset West with Sanien, and we're looking at complementary medicine in treating ailments such as cancer and a whole host of others. And let's for a moment stick with the cancer theme. I see you've got a nice little graphic here for me. So I've been diagnosed and I'm looking at complementary medicine to complement the treatment that I'm already going through. What is it that I should be looking for now?
That's another question that's almost like a needle in a haystack. I think what's really important for someone being diagnosed with cancer is they feel that they have limited choices. In terms of complementary medicine, they know they have choices. Unfortunately, what we often find is that they solely rely on Dr. Google for making the choices, or for the assistants in the shops to advise them and to help them. And we're grateful for all of that, but the important thing is that they must, with knowledge comes responsibility, and make sure that they take whatever is supportive to their body.
So in terms of the graphic which we're going to put up on the screen for everyone, do you want to take us through this?
Well, if you look at the graphic, it almost, the moment you read about complementary medicine or you visit a practitioner of natural medicine and you look at the dispensary like this, you won't know where to start or when to finish. And this is where I often say to patients, I can't carry you up the mountain, but I can walk alongside you. And I can tell you, go left here or go right here, or wait at this boulder and look over your shoulder and look at the beautiful fields of flowers. There's easier ways of doing things and there's more difficult ways of doing things. If you want to engage on a supplement regime, it's always best to get medical advice or advice from a practitioner. In terms of cancer or support for cancer, we spoke about the battle and clearing up the battleground, and that is where plant-based medicines play an important role. Nutrient-based medicines also plays an important role. Not to say that we need to engage in using mega dosages of vitamins and minerals, but what you eat and what you take gives messages for your body to recover.
To recover. So then let's step beyond the cancer now. And again, I'm so intrigued by all the bottles and the leaves and the seeds that we have over here. What sort of ailments, so to speak, are you able to treat with the complementary medicines?
The beauty of working with plant-based medicine is that we can work with an individualized approach. So I don't treat a condition, I treat a person.
Ah, nice.
And regardless of your diagnosis, it's important that you realize that you are more than your diagnosis. You're not the cancer patient in bed 3 or the amputee in bed 7 or the hypertension patient in bed 12. You're a person.
You're a person, yeah.
And that it allows us to look at you as an individual. With phytotherapy specifically, we make use of different forms of plant-based medicine, whether it's dried herbs in forms of teas, whether it's powdered herbs in forms of capsules or tablets, whether it's herbal extracts like tinctures. There's a whole host of ingredients that's available through different forms of plants, and we can combine those ingredients to get a treatment protocol that works for you. So if you have cancer, for instance, that's possibly not the only thing that's wrong with you. And we tend not to focus on what is wrong, but also look at what is right.
Yeah.
Because regardless of your diagnosis, there's more things right in your body than wrong in your body. And we do need to look at supporting what we can support so that the body can heal itself if it gets what it needs.
Body is a powerful thing.
Regardless of whether that is allopathic or whether that's complementary, the body needs tools to heal itself.
Okay. Also remember our previous guest, Dr. Trusha, and at the risk of sounding like we're prescribing a treatment here, and just very quickly coming back to the cancer, I remember she was saying she came to see you because she was battling with the side effects of the chemo, and you prescribed turmeric. And what exactly does that do? Because for me, my understanding of turmeric is it's an anti-inflammatory, or it has good anti-inflammatory properties.
Turmeric is again another powerhouse ingredient because it's made from the root or the rhizome of the turmeric plant. Now, turmeric is not very well absorbed in the body, so when we use it therapeutically, it's important that we use sufficient dosages of turmeric. Often with chemotherapy, a lot of the side effects relate to the liver that's really working hard in clearing up that battleground. So turmeric is one of the amazing spices that we can use that helps to support the liver. And as the liver works better, the drugs are being metabolized in a much more useful way, and then your side effects tend to be less. So a lot of what we do with plant-based medicine is supporting the body to metabolize pharmaceutical drugs in a much more helpful way so that your effect is better but your side effects are also less. So in her case, we've used therapeutic dosages of turmeric, and therapeutic dosages of turmeric is quite high. We're looking at least 4 to 6 grams per day, also keeping in mind that it's not readily absorbed in the body. So therefore we do look at turmeric extracts or curcumin extracts. That makes it possible for you to take in therapeutic quantities instead of wading through a plate of boripap.
What's the other one? Golden milk.
Golden milk is also another way where people take in turmeric, where turmeric is mixed with some coconut milk and some honey and some additional spices. Turmeric in a kitchen is a wonderful thing to cook with. You must just be careful to develop yellow kitchen syndrome because when you work with turmeric in therapeutic quantities, make sure you have specific utensils for it.
Otherwise everything's yellow. So So what I'm hearing as well here is that you can use the complementary medicines to battle side effects of, I suppose you could call it these days, the traditional medicines in your prescription medications. I'll never forget a stay in the US, and I'm like, how the hell is anybody still taking drugs? I saw an ad for a drug. It was for a diabetic medication, and they start listing the side effects, something you don't always read. I'm thinking that there's probably a plant or a seed or a spice out there to complement the medical treatments that you're receiving.
There's definitely always things that one can do to complement. Medicine, and even herbal medicine, does not replace a healthy diet and a healthy lifestyle.
Sure.
So often what we find is that people still continue with their fast food, high alcohol, high sugar content diets, and then expect that a plant-based drug should do a miracle. And it doesn't work that way. So this is to complement a healthy diet and lifestyle. And regardless of the diagnosis, those are the first building blocks that needs to be in place.
Sure. So we in essence then, we should really start looking at an holistic approach to looking after ourselves.
Exactly. And looking after yourselves means looking after not only your physical body, but also your mind and your emotions. Because with all chronic diseases, there's a host of emotions that we also need to take into consideration. And I often think that's something that gets left behind, especially in the allopathic approach to chronic diseases. And with herbal medicine, with working with things like the Bach flower remedies, for instance, enables us to address emotions as well.
Sure.
Also, if we look at plant-based medicine and what's called the doctrine of signatures, often the plant will give you a clue for what it is good. If you look at the walnut and if you look at the brain, they quite closely resemble each other. And walnuts contains quite a host of essential fatty acids that we need for brain function. So to conclude your question in terms of the holistic approach, visiting a practitioner of natural medicine, looking at diet and lifestyle together with plant-based medicines is what we advocate, in conjunction or at the background of the allopathic treatment that you receive, within the context of a family or a community support.
Awesome. So we have a few minutes left for the show, and I want to thank you again for opening up your practice to us and allowing us in and giving us some insight, and hopefully we can do a follow-up where we dive in a lot more, and I'm going to encourage our viewers out there to send through questions and let's see how we can build on this. But in closing, to our viewers out there, do you have a message for them?
The message that I want to leave with the viewers is that there is always hope. And that healing does not always mean curing, but that we do need to look at the quality of the lives that we live. And with whatever we do to ensure that whether it's plant-based medicine, whether it's allopathic medicine, whether it's traditional medicine, that we live the best life that we can possibly have. Because we've only got one.
And make the most of it.
Indeed.
Thank you so much again for your time. To our viewers out there, thank you for watching. And for me, as a parting message, it's become a lot more apparent as we've progressed, and we're sitting on episode 12 right now, that an holistic approach to our well-being is something that is needed. Sanien touched on the fact that we also got to look at our mental state, our mental well-being is just as important as receiving that medical treatment. There is a place out there for the complementary medicines, and I almost said alternate medicines because it's not really alternate. It's complementing what is already there. Educate yourselves. That knowledge is power, and the more you know, the better you can defend yourself, because at the end of the day, especially with something as aggressive as cancer, treatment usually happens quick. We touched on it last week where Dr. Trushida has said that you have the right to say, hold on, I need to think about this. Hold on, what alternatives are there for me? What complementary medication is there out there for me? So do your research, ask the questions, and Google isn't always the answer. Google can be very confusing. Speak to people who know, speak to the professionals. You're not going to ask a plumber to fix a mechanical problem on your car. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope to see you next week.